Every 4 years, something strange happens. Millions of people forget about work, sleep, money, and sometimes even reality itself. For 90 minutes of football. But this is not about football. It never was. Because what happens during those 90 minutes reveals something far more uncomfortable about human nature. Something most people never notice. This is not a sports event. It's a global psychological phenomenon. A synchronized emotional experience shared by entire nations at the exact same time. And what makes it even more interesting is that nobody is forced to participate. They choose it. Willingly. During the World Cup, reality starts to behave differently. Flights get delayed. Workplaces go quiet. Plans are cancelled without hesitation. Entire cities gather around screens like something far more important than daily life is happening. And in that moment, normal priorities disappear. Not slowly. Instantly. So what actually changes? It's not the world. It's the mind. Because in moments like these, people stop being individuals. They become part of something larger. A group. A side. A tribe. And suddenly, a simple football match is no longer just a game. It becomes identity. Us versus them. Victory versus defeat. Belonging versus exclusion. And when identity becomes involved, logic starts to weaken. Not because people become irrational, but because emotion becomes more important than analysis. A missed pass doesn't feel like a mistake anymore. It feels personal. A goal doesn't feel like statistics. It feels like victory for something bigger than the self. And once emotion reaches that level, thinking changes completely. But emotion alone is not enough to explain everything. There is another force at play. Scarcity. The World Cup doesn't happen often. Once every 4 years. Miss it now, and the moment is gone. Forever. And the brain reacts strongly to this kind of limitation. Because when something feels rare, it feels valuable. Not logically. Emotionally. And that is where urgency begins to form. The fear is not missing a game. It's missing a memory. A moment people will talk about for years. A story you cannot replay. And when the brain believes an opportunity is disappearing, it stops evaluating. It starts reacting. Questions like "is this worth it?" slowly disappear. And are replaced by a much more powerful one: what if I never get this chance again? Now something else begins to happen. Prices stop being numbers. A ticket is no longer expensive or cheap. It becomes a signal. A signal of access. Of status. Of presence. Because being there is no longer about watching a match. It's about being part of a moment millions can only observe from distance. And in that shift, value is no longer defined by money, but by meaning. But here's the deeper truth. No one is really buying a ticket. A ticket is just a QR code. A seat number. A piece of paper. What people are actually buying is a story. The story of saying, "I was there." A memory that cannot be replayed. A moment that becomes part of identity. Because long after the match is over, people don't remember every pass. They remember what it felt like to be there. And this is where everything connects. Because when a purchase becomes identity, logic becomes irrelevant. People don't spend the most on what they need. They spend the most on what defines them. Who they are. Who they want to be. And how they want to be remembered. But here's where most people get it wrong. This is not manipulation. There is no hidden force controlling decisions. No external system pulling strings. What we are seeing is human psychology in its purest form. Belonging. Emotion. Scarcity. Identity. They don't override logic. They compete with it. And sometimes, they win. So the World Cup is not just about football. It's about what happens when millions of people feel the same emotion at the exact same time. When identity becomes stronger than analysis. When urgency replaces patience. When belonging becomes more important than logic. And once you see it, you stop seeing events as entertainment. You start seeing them as behavior. This is the control code. And once you understand it, you start noticing it everywhere. Not just in sports, but in everything humans value. Everything humans buy. Everything humans believe. Because in the end, the strongest force in human behavior is not logic. It never was. It is emotion.